What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. The 2020-21 season has officially kicked off. We did the live stream last night, kind of reacting to player prices and stuff like that. And today, I've done the video you basically have to do if you're an FPL YouTuber. You can't have an FPL YouTube account and not do a first draft video. So this is mine. Obviously, the usual caveats apply. We haven't even got fixtures yet for one, so of course this draft is going to change. As I look at more and more players, the draft's going to change, and maybe I'll change formations and stuff like that. But I still think it's a really nice indicator to find out how the kind of lines of thinking are straight away, and how those drafts change up until we kick off. Obviously, there's only less than 4 weeks until the start of the season, so it's a much shorter turnaround time from when FPL opens to normal. So it'll be interesting to see. So I'm going to take you through my draft. Before I do that, loads and loads of content to come on this channel, both for pre-season and the full season as normal. So if you haven't yet already, make sure you do consider subscribing. It's completely free. Just click that button, click the notification bell so you know when all the other videos are going live. Trying to hit 100,000 subscribers this year, so the road to 100k officially starts now. So hit that subscribe button and I will get on with my draft. So here it is then, the first draft of the season. Now of course this is going to change, like I already said, especially when fixtures come out. When they do, I'll do an updated draft, because you might want like a Salah or a Sterling, but if they've got three really tough fixtures to start with, you probably go without them and then maybe look to bring them in later on. So fixtures is going to change our thinking a little bit. But this is how I'm looking at it right now. Now, when the prices were being leaked by FPL, so before the game actually launched, they put out, what, like 15, 20 player prices? And I saw a lot of people saying we should go 3-5-2, because when you saw Aubameyang being a midfielder, you still got Sterling, Salah, Mane, all these big hitting midfielders. It's sort of thinking that you should go towards 3-5-2. But obviously, when you actually try and put a draft together, it's very hard to fit in Salah, Sterling, Mane, and Aubameyang as well. So I've actually lined up so far with a 3-4-3. Now, along the years, like in the 10 seasons that I've been playing, 3-4-3 is always the most popular draft, at least at the start. It doesn't always end like that. Like last year, a lot of us ended on 3-5-2. And of course, you can start with 3-5-2. There's nothing to say you can't. But 3-4-3 tends to be the most popular. And the reason I like it is the big hitting players are easy to want to pick. You always want the Sterlings, the Salahs, the Manes, Kane, Aguero, whoever it might be at the time. But the 6 to kind of 7.5 million mid-price budget options, they're the ones where you have to have them into your team to warrant the big hitters, or to be able to afford the big hitters. And when I look between kind of 6 and 7.5 million for midfield versus strikers or forwards, I think there's a bit more, or a few more options in the forward line versus the midfield. Now that might change as we go on and I look into players a little bit more, look into the stats. The fixtures will change that as well. But right now I think there's quite a few forwards who look like they could be good value. Now, one of the things I will say with this draft is I've got 5 defenders, and 4 of them are 4.5 million defenders. Now, last year it wasn't really an option last year, because there wasn't too many 4.5 million playing defenders that were good. And obviously we wanted double Liverpool defence. That was a bit easier to fit in last year. Robertson and Trent were both 7 million. But this year, especially with the likes of Man United doing okay, but all their player prices getting an increase. Obviously Sterling has come down a little bit, but Mane's had an increase, Aubameyang's had an increase. I personally want to try and go cheaper at the back. Now, I'm not necessarily going to 100% do that, because one of the things I like about expensive defenders are they're a bit more reliable when it comes to steady points. And at the start of the season, when you don't know which attackers are on form, choosing the right defenders might be a little bit easier. But for this draft, I've done the old age thing of going for really cheap defenders and putting all the money in attack, which is what a lot of us would have done back in the day. In the last couple of years, it's probably changed a little bit, but I like this one. So you've got Trent in the back. I feel like, is he must own? He's about as close as to must own as any player can get, really. 7.5 million, over 200 points last year. Bearing in mind, he only had a 0.5 million price increase. He didn't beat Robertson's record, but he got 7 fewer clean sheets than Robertson did. And I would say Liverpool aren't going to get 14 clean sheets this year. They're going to get more if Alisson's fit. I just don't see why they would get 14 again. The season before, they got 21, and Alisson was injured for a little bit of the season last year. So I think the points that him and Robertson and Van Dijk can get could actually be higher than last year. So a 0.5 increase, a lot of people were surprised at that. I kind of said I wouldn't have been shocked at 8.5, but I did feel like 8 was the max. And he has come in at 7.5 million. So he's in. I can't see a situation where I don't go for him in game week 1. I've been burned by not owning him before. Such a great player that, yeah, I definitely want him in. Now, I might go for some higher price defenders at some point. But right now I've got 4.5. Vinagre at Wolves looks like a really good option. Bolly's, I think, is 5.5. Sice is 5. Johnny as well is basically injured for a very long time. So unless they sign another left back, which they might do, that could happen. Obviously, Vinagre might not be an option then. But right now, for 4.5 million, it looks like a bit of a bargain. He is going to be one of the biggest bandwagons within the FPL community from now until Game Week 1, if he is the only kind of player they can play at left back / left wing back. So for 4.5 million, Wolves are such a good team for defensive returns, especially with Bolly fit. If he's fit, the clean sheets will be there. They've got no Europe to contend with either. So he's in my team. And then basically I've just picked 4 or 3 other 4.5 million defenders. You've got Taylor at Burnley. So obviously we've seen the likes of Nick Pope got to 5.5 million. And if you're saying he's worth 5.5 million because of the amount of clean sheets he's going to get, well, again, unless they sign other players, Taylor's probably going to come back in as the first choice left back. We'll have to see what happens with Peters. But Taylor, until he got injured, was first choice. So for 4.5 million, you cover the same clean sheets as Pope. So I think he could be a pretty good price depending on fixtures. And then Webster and Target, look, they're not my first choice defenders, but with the money I've got up front, I can't afford anything else. And obviously I will look for kind of other 4.5s or other 4 million defenders as I'm making my drafts and updating them as I go. So defensive-wise, I think it looks pretty good. In goal, look, I'm never spending 5.5 million on Nick Pope. I don't care if with his, the points he got last year and for 5.5 million, that's a good value pick. It's just not happening. I'm not spending 5.5 on a goalkeeper. The most I will spend is 5. I might go up to that 5 million slot. I like the look of like Leno at 5 million if he gets his spot back. If he doesn't, by the way, if Martinez keeps his spot at Arsenal, which I know isn't 100% guaranteed, but if he does, for 4.5 million for an Arsenal goalkeeper, Martinez will be in everyone's team. I'm telling you now, no one will be looking at Pope. Everyone will be going for Martinez. So that's one to look out for. But right now I've gone for the classic combo. Ryan and Button, 8.5 million, I should say. And you get 2 playing goalkeepers. If Ryan doesn't play, Button comes in. What more could you want? So there's not too many 4.5 million options. I think McCarthy at Southampton's also 4.5 million. Could be a look in as well. And I might even put in a different Southampton defender into my team as well and just not go for the goalkeeper potentially. But that's what the defence is looking right now. I think it looks pretty good. Obviously, I'm probably going to go for a couple or 1 or 2 more, higher priced players than 4.5 million defence. But you can see what it does to the rest of the attack. So let's talk about the attack as well. This is where it gets interesting and basically why I want as many 4.5 million or less defenders in my team as possible. Because I like big hitting players. I want to get the attackers in, spend more money in the attack. Doesn't always work out the best way because obviously defenders can rack up good points as well, especially like Trent. And I should say, obviously, I've not got Robertson or Van Dijk, but a double up on Liverpool defence is by no means a bad option either. But it is sometimes more exciting to try and go for the attacking player, so I thought that's what I would try and build. Now, usually I start with 2 big hitters that I'm basically not necessarily 2 big hitters, but 2 primary captaincy options. Doesn't mean that I can't captain Werner or Grealish or whoever it might be, but usually I've got my 2 big hitters I can rely on most weeks. In this case, it's Salah and Sterling. Now, I think FPL made a mistake by pricing Mane at the same price as Salah, both 12 million. I just think Mane is not a bad option by any means. He came close to Salah again last year, and he probably will next year. But if you're going to pick between the 2, with no other data to go on just yet, is Salah going to have a bad season and Mane a good one? I don't think many people are betting on that from the off. And with Salah having penalties, and I don't expect Milner to get too much game time this season, not enough where it would affect Salah's ability to take those penalties as well, then for the same price, I'm always going to start with Salah. So he's in, obviously barring fixtures and stuff as well, but he's a reliable captain option, as is Sterling most of the time. Now, last season, Sterling started off with a hat-trick in Game Week 1, which was incredible, 20 points. The problem was he kind of went downhill, in terms of FPL points at least, quite quickly after that. And he wasn't really an option until post-lockdown, when he was an incredible option, in fact. And people that went for him and captained him really, really shot up the ranks. But in between that, he wasn't a great option, as a lot of people will tell you. But I just think he was on form after lockdown. I think a lot of my decisions will go on kind of past stats, past performances, but especially post-lockdown, because the difference in turnaround time this year is so much different. I think we have got a bit of form to go on. We're not going to get like a 2 or 3 month break like we've had before. And Sterling's form was incredible. So he's the same price as Kevin De Bruyne. That is not an easy decision for me, because if De Bruyne is still on penalties ahead of Aguero, that makes him a pretty incredible option. He already racks up a huge amount of assists. He already scores a few goals from open play as well. So add penalties onto that for a team that I could easily see get 6 or 7 plus this season, given the way they attack, how often they have the ball, how often they're in the penalty area and stuff like that. Then Kevin De Bruyne potentially for the same price could outscore Sterling again. But My betting is on Sterling for the start of the season at least. We saw how well he started last year. We saw how well he did post-lockdown as well. And the one thing I'll say about him last year is he was always posting good stats, but for whatever reason he wasn't converting them. That ended up happening. He essentially regressed to the mean. He regressed to where his stats were, and the points started to go in. So I wouldn't want to bet against that straight away. And because I would see him more as a goal scorer, and obviously Kevin De Bruyne as the assister in that team. Yes, obviously if he gets penalties, that's a different situation. But on any given day, if there's no penalty, I would hope, or maybe even expect Sterling to probably outscore Kevin De Bruyne in most scenarios. So for the same price, I'm on Sterling. Had Kevin De Bruyne been 0.5 million less than Sterling, it's a different conversation. But right now I'm on Sterling. I've got Son in there for 9 million. I'm not massively convinced about that. I think him and Kane and Spurs in general look better under Mourinho in the last few games under lockdown, or post-lockdown, I should say. The only problem is Kane was the one getting lots of chances, and Son towards the end didn't really score too many. I actually had him in my team, which is a bit frustrating, but he has had a slight price drop down to 9 million. And, again, he's someone that could start off the season really well, depending on the right fixtures. But obviously, I could swap him. I could maybe go for a 6.5 or a 6 million midfielder instead and put Martial up front. So there's options in where to kind of put that money, basically. And then Grealish is in there as kind of almost like a template holder for a £7 million midfielder, whoever it might be, just because that's all I've got to spend in that slot. Grealish obviously had a really good season last year. Villa stayed up just about. So I think for me to go for Grealish, I would have to see which other players Villa sign, because I just don't think their team is good enough to warrant picking too many FPL players from them. Grealish created a huge amount of chances last year. I think he was the second highest for chances created behind Kevin De Bruyne, so he even overtook Trent Alexander-Arnold by the end. The problem is, who's he passing that ball to? Who's he creating these chances for? Villa's attack is just not good enough. So for me, if they sign a few players, maybe a goal-scoring forward, goal-scoring striker, whoever it might be, then maybe Grealish is an option for 7 million. But he got that slight price increase, probably fully warranted, to be fair, given how he played. But I'd want to see some other signings there. But otherwise, that's really just like a template placeholder for 7 million. And up front, so 6 to 6.5 million, I do think there's some options. So Antonio, who I don't have in my team, if West Ham have the right fixtures, we saw how well he finished post-lockdown. If he's got that striker spot ahead of Haller, he could be a really good option for 6.5. He actually had a price drop from the 7 million starting price the year before. That's probably because he's been converted from a midfielder to a striker. I don't know why they didn't do the same for Richarlison, to be honest. They kept him at 8. That's not bad price, but I would like to have seen him drop down to 7.5 to maybe make people consider him a little bit more. But I do think Antonio for 6.5 could be good. I think Mitrovic, I wouldn't be expecting massive amount of goals from him, but for 6 million, we've seen him score goals in the league before. It's not like he can't do it. So if Fulham's fixtures are right, I'd be looking there. But I think Che Adams for 6 is a really good option. So Ings is obviously the one that everyone wants, but he's 8.5 million. And if you look post-lockdown, Che Adams took ages to actually score a goal for Southampton last year. But when he did, he carried on doing so. And his stats were actually really good when you compare them to Ings, kind of post-lockdown or for the last few matches as well. So maybe he can start taking that momentum into this season. Now, the problem is, obviously, they have other strikers there like Shane Long as well. The strikers do tend to get rotated around the 60 to 70 minute mark as well, so that would worry me. But if Southampton have good fixtures and you cannot stretch to Danny Ings, I don't think Che Adams for 2.5 million less, and don't forget that is a lot of money, especially when you're building your Gameweek 1 team, I think he could be a really good option. And Chris Wood, again, same price as last year, 6.5 million. Another player that always posts really good stats, even though he's playing for a Burnley team that you wouldn't consider hugely attacking. If they score, he is usually involved. He's easily a 10, 12 plus striker or goal per season striker. And I think he could offer good value for 6.5 million if the fixtures are right. So I like both of those around the 6 to 6.5 million mark. Obviously, you've got Vardy at 10 million. For me, that's too expensive. Firmino's 9.5, one of the most overpriced players in the game for me. So not going anywhere near here. Martial for 9 would be nice. I've actually got no Man United players in here yet. Obviously, a lot of that will depend on fixtures. If they got a great fixture on, then I'll start to look at them. Bruno Fernandes is going to be a hard sell for me, I think, at 10.5. I do think Martial Rashford could post a pretty similar score for less money. So they're the ones I'm looking at. But I'd really want to see fixtures before I go for Man United players because the points are so spread around. And obviously, if they don't end up signing Sancho, Greenwood at 7.5 million will suddenly be a template player. I'm telling you, he will be one of the most owned players if we think that he's going to start week in, week out for 7.5 million. So all eyes on the transfer window for that one. Last player to talk about is Werner. Now, this could be Martial at 9 million. I'm not set on Werner 100%, but his stats from the Bundesliga are super good. Pulisic's were also good. Aubameyang's were pretty good as well. And we've seen them come to the Premier League and do it. Now, Pulisic did take a bit of time to get going, but he did score, and then he kind of got injured and went off the boil a bit, couldn't get back into the side. It was a little bit of a weird situation, but when he did, towards the end of the season, he was extremely good. And I think Werner's got a chance of doing that as well. 9.5 million is a bit more money to obviously punt on that happening. But I think we have, like, people always say, don't get new players to the league. But we've seen players sometimes do really well. Salah, for example, came to the league. I know he played in it before, but when he came to Liverpool, he did extremely well. The highest point score ever from an FPL player. So Werner could be the one as well. So the fixtures are good. I'm looking at him. I'd be looking at Pulisic for 1 million less as well. But obviously we don't know if he's going to be fit to start the season. There's Ziyech as well to think about as well. But Werner looks really nice for 9.5 million. I could play 3-5-2, shift him for Jones, who I've just basically got as a 4.5 million midfield placeholder, and go for a cheap striker instead. But right now, I kind of like the 3-4-3 setup. It lets me move players around. If there's a bandwagon around £7-8 million up front, I can change Werner to them. I've got money in two big hitting midfielders as well, in Salah and Sterling, that I can convert money down from, etc., etc. So I quite like this team. Just to quickly finish on Jones in midfield, that's basically a 4.5 million placeholder. I always do that. I know Souček is going to be a really, really popular player, because for 5 million, I do think he represents really good value. A lot of people have pointed out that he's basically David Moyes' Fellaini now for West Ham. So he could score some goals. We've seen plenty of goals from him already, both kind of already for West Ham, but even before that at previous clubs as well. But I just can't bring myself to spend the extra 0.5 million for a player that I'm going to bench most times. So I probably will have just a 4.5 million non-playing midfielder or forward, depending on whether I go 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. Potentially, I could go 4 or 5 at the back, but I doubt it, to be honest. So that's my first draft. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know how yours are shaping up currently. Just before I end this video, I did want to say I do have a Patreon set up for anyone that wants to support the channel a little bit more and let me take this even further than I already have done. There's a few things on offer which you can check out in the link in the description below. Team reveals, stream Wall of Fame, monthly prizes, exclusive content, that kind of thing, as well as a WhatsApp one-to-one service as well. If that's the kind of thing you are looking for, click the link in the description below, check it out, and see what you think. If you've got any questions about it, obviously leave me one in the comments below. Send me a message on Twitter, email, or whatever it might be. Otherwise, I'll leave this video here. Give it a like if you've enjoyed it. Much appreciated as always. Subscribe if you are new around here. There's so much more content to come for pre-season and during the season, as I said. Otherwise, I'll catch you tomorrow for another video. Cheers all.